What's up, everybody? This is Jason, Zombie Collector Extraordinaire, and the fans have spoke. One, they spoke about my awful hair that we're still living in this world that we can't get haircuts on at all. But no, that's not what they spoke about. They said, "What about if you do a series where you talk a little bit about maybe some of the films that you really enjoy?" And give us some ideas about stuff, because my first one kind of in this foray was talking about grindhouse films, and the more I thought about that, I'm going to show specific ones off, but those are sometimes hard to find, or a little bit more obscure, and they might not even exist on a DVD, Blu-ray format. You might literally have to find VHS, or they're just impossible to find. And if you do find them, they're super expensive. So I'm going to do a handful of films, and I'm going to talk a little bit about them. It's not going to be a deep dive. I might do those on some films for sure, or ones you see in my videos like this, where I just kind of suggest some things and maybe talk a little bit about it. I will go on later on and maybe go a little deeper into a specific film. So these are not necessarily grindhouse films at all. I think actually none of these are grindhouse films or anything like that. So I don't want to make it sound like I'm showing off grindhouse films. Actually, some of these are some more modern stuff mixed in with some stuff from the 80s. But the first one up I am going to show is the Steelbook, a single disc edition of Dog Soldiers. And this is, I believe, they filmed it in like in Scotland. I think they're from originally, if I'm not sure. But this is by the director Neil Marshall. And if I'm not mistaken, there is not anybody huge in this film. There's no like famous people. This is all like a British cast, European cast, maybe Scottish, Irish, whatnot. Um, but it's military. Just a brief overview. It is a military, like soldiers are like disband out to the woods, and essentially, I think it's some sort of like training exercise. And what they find in the woods is not what they expect. Let's just say, if you have an idea, if you see this in the background, and it's called Dog Soldiers, let's just say it's a very big dog that walks on two legs and a full mouth full of sharp teeth, that is out there hunting them. There's tons of practical effects in this movie. It is a different spin on the werewolf movie a little bit, which I enjoy. There is, I believe, kind of like it's kind of has some uh, overtures of like of American Wolf in London, of The Howling. It has some of those overtures in those movies, because it takes place like kind of around in a farmhouse essentially. So like I said, I'm not going to go deep dive in a lot of this. I want to try to keep these videos somewhat short. But Dog Soldiers, this is pretty readily available now. This specific one might not be, because it's a still book. This one might be out of print. It does say limited edition on there, but it says Jaws, Aliens, and Predator with a werewolf twist. So there you go. But I would highly recommend this. And also, this is the same director who did The Descent, which I thought was a great movie, a lot. The next one up is John Carpenter's The Fog. It's one of his lesser known films. It is zero level of scariness. I think it's actually it's rated R. Shock. I thought it'd be like PG, because back in the there was no PG-13 and back in the 80s. So it was like GPG, R, and then not rated or unrated NC-17. I guess maybe it was NC-17, maybe not. Maybe just unrated. But this is actually R. So I'm not. I guess it might be because of some of the kills in it. But honestly, to our standards today, this is not a R-rated movie whatsoever. You have Janet Leigh from Psycho fame, when she's in the Alfred Hitchcock, like that's Jamie Lee Curtis's mother, and Jamie Lee Curtis is also in this. So there you have that, a mother-daughter team, and then you have the man, the myth, the legend. Well, is it? Well, hold on, wait. Well, let's see here. The man, the myth, the legend. I guess. Well, what was going with that was John Carpenter. Is his score, his directing, of course, is fantastic. I'm not for sure where it comes in the list of where his movies were, like where it was in the list of when they came out. I want to say this was. obviously this was after Halloween, but I'm not for sure was it if it was before Christine, and I think this was also before Christine. You also have Adrienne Barbeau, who goes on later on to, I believe, marry John Carpenter, but she's in this as well. She's playing like a radio DJ, and she has this most awesome voice, very very hot voice. And she was the first one I ever heard, and kind of made me think about who is the person behind the mic. Before I watched this movie, I never really cared about radio DJs or whatever you want to call them. I could care less. I had no bearing in my thinking of were they good looking, were they fat and nasty, were they mentally challenged, or what. I just was kind of like, it's a voice on the radio, whatever. But then you hear her do her talking and her sweet sweet vocals, and you're like, nice. There's a couple different variations of this movie. Do not accidentally buy the remake, because that is a piece of garbage, a complete dumpster fire. But this is actually pretty good. Again, it's a slow burn. There's not a lot of action. I think it takes place on Antonio Bay, and there's the 100th anniversary. I'm reading back a little bit of it just to give you a little bit more of a heads up. And a fog rolls in onto this sleepy oceanside town, and let's just say there's something that's coming in that fog that's not so pleasant. So it's one of his lesser known gems. I do like this movie. A lot of people kind of gloss over this for like the Halloween and for Christine. I think it's probably a little bit more famous in this movie as well. And then a few of the other films like even oh shoot, oh my gosh, Big Trouble in Little China, of course, is much bigger than this. So, anyways, but again, I think this is a good one, and the special features on this are pretty good. There is a green variation of this movie as well that has some more stuff on it. But anyways, here's John Carpenter's classic, in my personal opinion, The Fog. Next up is from a director who just passed away recently, Stuart Gordon. This is From Beyond with this awful artwork. Now, if you're from the 80s like myself, I grew up in the 80s, you remember this kind of artwork on the poster and on the DVD, or I'm sorry, on the VHS. But one of my favorite actors, Ken Foray, is in this, who's actually a Hoosier. You also have, I believe, Barbara Crampton, yes, and you have Jeffrey Combs. So those are kind of like the main ones in this movie. And there's like really no way to explain this movie. It's a H.P. Lovecraft. I guess you could say it's from his repertoire of material. Stuart Gordon was a huge fan of H.P. Lovecraft, and it's pretty gory. A lot of in-camera special effects. All these movies have pretty much all in-camera special effects. Very little, maybe aside from the Dog Soldiers, maybe a little bit, have any kind of digital effects whatsoever. All these other movies I'm going to show you are all, I think, for the most part, in-camera special effects with very minimal digital effects. And if there is some on the two more modern movies, it's to a very small degree. It says, the return of real fear, real depravity to the horror film. That was a quote by Roger Ebert. Humans are such easy prey. That's the tagline down there. And then this is the unrated version, the director's cut. And so, let me just read the first paragraph to you, just so you kind of get an idea. H.P. Lovecraft classic tale of suspense becomes a grisly amalgam of sex, shock, and satire in the hands of the creator of the Reanimator, and now armed with shocking, never-before-seen footage and special features on the DVD. For the first time, this bloody good entertainment has evolved into one of the most gruesomely riveting film experiences of all time. There's a couple different taglines in there from a couple different Newsweek and Time, so there you go. So anyways, but there you go, guys. There is From Beyond. I better say They Live, but From Beyond by Stuart Gordon. And if you know Stuart Gordon's films, he's a big fan of Jeffrey Combs and Barbara Crampton. They were also in Reanimator, which I will probably talk about at some point in time. And he's done a lot of movies with those guys. So anyways, that movie. And the last one up, to try to keep this like not going too over, is a Don Coscarelli film. And Don Coscarelli is known for the Phantasm franchise. He's done quite a few other films, but probably the other best known movie that he's ever done, which again he hasn't done a whole lot. That's going to be known by a lot of people. Is Bubba Ho-Tep with Ash himself, Bruce Campbell. Now this can come in a couple different variations. There's a couple like slip covers with like Elvis jackets. But the premise of this is outlandish in itself. Just stay with me for a second. Bruce Campbell, you're kind of led to believe, it's up for interpretation, that he's actually he is the real Elvis Presley. He's Elvis. He didn't really die. He's been hiding out for however many decades, and he now ends up in an old folks home. And there is a soul-sucking mummy that's going around killing all these old people at this old folks home. It's kind of like pre-Rona. But he joins forces with JFK, who happens to be Ossie Davis, who is a black guy. And so you have JFK, who's an old black dude, with the crippled crusader here, Elvis Presley, Bruce Campbell, and they fight this mummy who is a soul-sucking mummy, but he doesn't suck the souls from their mouth, they suck them from their bungholes. So this mummy sucks your soul from your bunghole. I'm not making any of this up. This is all 100%. And there's a couple other people in this movie you'd recognize in there. This is not a huge cast. It's pretty much all takes place in an old folks home. If you look on the back, you can see JFK and Elvis teaming together to take out this soul-sucking demon. So nothing should stop you from seeing this film. And let me just read the first 2 or 3 sentences. Mud Creek, Texas is about to get all shook up when mysterious deaths plague the Shady Rest retirement home. It's up to an aging, cantankerous Elvis and a decrepit and black JFK to defeat a 3,000-year-old Egyptian mummy. I'm going to just leave that just kind of just lingering. So there you go, Bubba Ho-Tep. I mean, this movie definitely would have come out during the Grindhouse times, days for sure, and would have done big business. But with all that being said, guys, to try to, like I said, keep this at least under 15 minutes, there's the first 4 films in this series, From Beyond, The Fog, Dog Soldiers, and Bubba Ho-Tep. All these movies are available to be able to get, I believe. I think there's different incarnations or variations of the DVDs and Blu-rays out there. I just grabbed the first 4 I found to kind of make this fun. Let me know if you've seen the movies. So the things I want to happen with this moving forward are, if you've seen the movies, let me know what you think. Do you think I was right, wrong? You could tell me you hated it. It was awful. You couldn't stand them. Or you could tell me, it's your favorite film. If you haven't seen it, let me know. If you're interested in checking it out, if I helped you push you in the direction of watching it, or after I gave you the little brief synopsis, you're like, absolutely not. Have no interest in that, which is totally fine. And then maybe you might have some suggestions on what else I can do, as far as maybe movies I can talk about, genres I can talk about, topics about film. And if I know anything about it, I'll be more than happy to kind of share my opinions. But I had a handful of people really seem to enjoy this, and I really appreciate it. I feel like I am pretty excited about it. I think you all can probably see that I'm a little bit excited about it. And so we'll see how it goes. I'm not going to stop doing the cards. I'm going to, still put those in their rotation as well, but it might give it a little bit of a difference. Kind of like what Ed Wesker Griff does. Ed does a lot of straight up maybe movie-based stuff, or movie cards where he shows music-based things a lot of times. It has sometimes nothing to do with cards, which and he still does great. So I'm looking at you, Ed. So until next time, guys, thanks for watching. Peace.